Looks like you really stepped in it this time.
As someone who played it during its early access period, I was immediately surprised by how much Grounded has evolved for its 1.0 launch. It feels like it's not only fulfilled the potential of its Honey, I Shrunk the Kids survival premise, but exceeded nearly all of my expectations of it. Even though it's still plagued with mostly harmless bugs that can annoy, and I mean the software kind, I enjoyed practically every minute of the over 100 hours I've played so far. It's a stunningly creative and consistently funny adventure, and it easily stands shoulder to shoulder alongside my favorite survival games.
I am also a robot! I am sure this all must be very disorienting for you, but hopefully I can explain.
Grounded is a survival game first and foremost, but draws a ton of inspiration from Obsidian's history as a team of RPG wizards as well. You'll split your time between scavenging the charming backyard setting for materials, crafting awesome items from the corpses of your enemies, building badass structures to protect yourself and your stuff, fighting giant bugs that gave my co-op partners nightmares, exploring extremely difficult dungeons, leveling up your character's stats and equipment, and more. At the same time, numerous character progression mechanics, and enemy weaknesses and resistances system that had me poring over data in the menus, elaborate boss fights, and NPCs and dialogue options that break up the action all make it feel more like a role-playing game than most of its survival peers.
Let us stack them together like the ingredients of a burger!
Admittedly, there aren't very many NPCs defined, and most story development is either told via collectible audio recordings or locked behind hours of survival gameplay and a bit of grinding. But Grounded strikes a great balance between making you feel on your own in a hostile backyard and meeting quirky characters, most of whom inevitably try to maim you. Grounded's tale of shrunken children in search of a way to return to their normal size isn't always front and center. You might spend a dozen hours gathering supplies and improving your base without that goal ever coming up. But when it does take the spotlight, it shines by being utterly ridiculous and laugh out loud funny.
All natural flavoring is not, strictly speaking, natural.
One of your main allies is this fiercely annoying spatula-handed robot who's programmed to cook burgers. The bad guy's name is Director Schmechter, and you spend a lot of time running around collecting a currency called raw science. Grounded just never takes itself seriously, to hilarious effect. In fact, one endgame reveal was so over the top and wonderfully stupid that it caused both of my teammates to remove their headsets for a few minutes to walk it off, as I howled with delight. I wouldn't trade that moment for anything, and Grounded's remarkably idiotic story is positively chock full of them.
I know it's been months, but the embiggen process is far more complicated and dangerous than we predicted.
Even next to those memorable characters, the star of Grounded is hands down the backyard itself. It's completely beautiful and oozes personality from every enormous blade of grass. One inhospitable and extremely rude area has an overturned charcoal grill that acts as a volcanic mountain range, while another has a leaking bug bomb that fills the area with a noxious gas and mutated insects. A child's sandbox becomes a hysterical and hostile desert where staying out in the sun for more than a few seconds causes you to burn up, so you've got to dart between patches of shade for cover. A koi pond becomes a terrifying and deadly game of cat and mouse as you explore the water's depths and avoid the oppressive gaze of the pond's guild master. Every tiny patch of grass acts as its own distinct area, with its own host of incredibly dangerous creatures, things to discover, and obstacles to overcome. And the attention to detail and creativity born from that never stopped making me smile. Even small things, like how you have to collect drinkable water from blades of grass that carry a single drop of dew, are excellent little touches. Part of what makes Grounded so immensely entertaining is the fact that it gets so many things right with its metaphorical sandbox, from building and resource management to exploration and combat. What starts out as a pretty straightforward set of building blocks with base building quickly proliferates into downright insanity that goads you into unleashing your creativity with multi-story buildings, zip lines, trampolines, and housing for your pets. This alone can soak up hours of your time as you work to perfect your tiny dwelling with all of the modern accommodations a miniature child might want, like a cooking station for making delicious insect-based foods, a comfy leaf bed for a night's rest, or a garden for growing your own mushrooms and the like. In my group's case, we built our home into the side of this massive oak tree, and over the course of our playthrough, our structure steadily climbed up the twisted roots and branches until it felt like a proper fortress. Placing items and getting the spacing just right isn't always perfect, and sometimes the finicky controls for placing structures can result in wasted time or resources. But it's flexible enough so that you can build around most environments, or else tear off what's there to make it your own. When you aren't building your micro-utopia, you'll venture into the hazards of the comely backyard in search of adventure and supplies to bring back to your fort. This part of Grounded feels much more like a proper RPG adventure than a standard survival game, with melee and ranged combat that often require precise timing or that you make clever use of equipment, smoothies, which are Grounded's version of potions, and the environment. In my case, I sought to become a proper melee tryhard, who used perfect parries to swat away incoming attacks, wear down the enemy's stamina, and stun them into oblivion, while my party members dealt death from afar with an arsenal of elemental arrows. Like many things in Grounded, combat starts out as a fairly straightforward affair and quickly escalates into a complicated algorithm that might call for an Excel spreadsheet if you were to map everything out. Early on, you'll mostly just be blocking, attacking, and navigating the sometimes tricky terrain to achieve victory, all table stakes of a standard survival game. But as you're introduced to beefier and meaner enemies, as well as the inhospitable environments they call home, you'll have to do research, make decisions about what to craft, upgrade, and carry with you, and switch up how you bring the fight to the insect antagonists. Grounded also has a wide variety of enemy types you'll go to war against, from burrowing antlions to absolutely terrifying black ox beetles. Even after 100 hours, I was still finding new enemies I hadn't fought yet. In fact, my Pokedex still isn't complete yet. That said, while running amok in Grounded is almost always a blast, it does occasionally subject you to some painful design choices that bring the good times to an abrupt halt. Chief among these issues is the absolutely tiny inventory space you're forced to work with in a sandbox that's absolutely stuffed with things it wants you to loot. If you're like me, you'll have to stop the laughs and exploration to stare at a grid of precious items and face a Sophie's Choice ordeal for what to bring with you and what to leave behind, and you're given almost zero opportunities to expand your storage space throughout the course of your journey. If there's one area in which Grounded continues to struggle the most, though, it's with bugs, and not just the type that skitter about and eat your face off. As has been the case since its debut into early access 2 years ago, Grounded remains technically rough. In my time with it, I experienced regular crashes to the Xbox dashboard, had my co-op teammates get kicked from my world randomly, saw insects and items get stuck inside of objects within the world, had my camera get knocked out of alignment so I could see right into my character's body, and more. If there's a silver lining here, it's that none of these issues break anything in any lasting way. The autosave makes sure you don't lose any significant progress. The camera can easily be reset, and re-inviting crestfallen teammates is usually quick and relatively painless. Still, it's disappointing that we didn't get a more stable final product after 2 whole years of early access development.
Think you outsmarted me, the mighty Muldoon? I don't think so, you.
Grounded is a zany, challenging, and memorable adventure that benefits from Obsidian's instantly recognizable style, humor, and RPG bonafides, making it one of the best survival games in years. There aren't many games that I've been anxious to dive back into after playing for over 100 hours, but I'm still daydreaming about my next tiny expedition. Even the obnoxiously small inventory space and continued wonkiness and stability issues haven't come close to throwing a wet blanket over an otherwise fantastic experience. It's a testament then to how incredibly strong every other part of Grounded is that these issues did very little to cramp my style or my immense enjoyment. For more, check out our reviews of Disney Dreamlight Valley and Ooblets. And for everything else, stick with IGN.